Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed. I'm gonna ask the creative team to come on out, and we'll get started with this little talk back. Okay, I'll take. You guys grab a seat. I'll take the end. Just so you all know, this was not an advertisement for the West Side Theater's production of Little Shop of Horrors. We can talk a little bit about rights acquisitions for large-scale musicals.
They're expensive.
Guys, introduce yourselves, please, starting with Nick.
How you doing? My name is Nick Sadhnani, and I was one of the producers of Yaniv.
I'm Amnon Carmi. I'm Amnon Carmi. I directed and produced as well.
Hey, I'm Ben Ducoff. I wrote it with Amnon. I almost said directed. I did not direct this movie. I wrote it with Amnon, and I produced it as well.
You were that guy in the movie too, right? You look kind of familiar.
I feel like
Did you do anything else in the movie?
I'm also in the movie. As are you two.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
And so am I.
You.
I played Rick, the evil cousin. And so let's just hop in. So bringing the idea of this film to screen, Ben, Amnon, talk a little bit about what that process was like and how you sort of went from, hey, let's make a card game run by the Hasidic Jewish mafia into a feature-length film.
Well, luckily the card game already exists. It is a real game, and you're all going to play it tonight, and we're going to teach you. And we're obsessed with this game. Amnon taught it to me. He discovered it when he was living in Israel. So it's a game that we've always played to pass the time, or even when we don't need to pass the time. When we're in a rush, we'll play it. Amnon and I have been best friends and creative partners for over 20 years. We met in 4th grade at recess, and we've been making films ever since. And we always knew we wanted to take on a project of, a feature-length project, and we love this game, and the story just kind of poured out of us at least 17 different times.
At least, yeah. I mean, it was during COVID, we were hanging out a lot, and of course the ideas kept rolling, and most of them were awful, and we just kind of batted them away, but then suddenly this one stuck. It's like, what if there was a underground Hasidic Jewish casino where they played this Israeli, kind of like our generation, new game, Yaniv? And we started off as a short film, and within a week it was a feature. So we couldn't help ourselves, we had to do it, and it became what it became.
And now I still have goosebumps. I think I've seen this movie no less than 15 times. And I still get goosebumps at the end when I see the kids in this high school take bows for Little Shop. And I think education is such a large part of this film, funding for education, things like that. So can you talk a bit, I know before you guys got a sort of disclaimer about all the educational components of this, but Ben, can you talk a bit about your new role, what you'll be furthering in your own teaching?
Yeah, so I've been teaching film now for a few years. I started as a teaching fellow, just doing special education. I just finished my 6th year in the public schools here in New York, and thanks, surviving. I got some of my former students here. She's gonna be nice to me now. Okay. A few years in, obviously filmmaking, storytelling, performing arts has always been my passion, and that was something that I always, used in my classes. And Amnon and I have been always making stuff together. So, when we started to come back into schools and, the city was really looking for programming to get students to come, we pretty much lost school culture during the pandemic. Kids just they lost their sense of what a school is, what a school community is, and how it's just as important as the academic sides, but it was completely lost. So the city was really invested in finding ways to bring kids back into the building. So that's when I brought Amnon in, and we pitched this whole filmmaking program, because we know that here in New York, every day, there are commercials, TV shows, movies, music videos, industrial films, what have you, are happening, and there's a lot of jobs, maybe not necessarily in front of the camera, but definitely behind the camera. So we kind of got this program started, and the city was like, well, what movie are the kids going to work on? And that's where we were like, we have a movie. So that's how this all got started. And now I'm going to be transitioning into a new role at a new film school that the city is opening up. It's a public vocational school for kids that want to learn production. It's called Motion Picture Tech. It's in Queens. So yes, there's a lot of investment happening in this. It's really good. We're lucky to live in a city that is willing to support that. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
And it's worth supporting, too. I mean, case in point, these students were hired. They were getting paid New York minimum wage. The ones in front of the camera were getting paid SAG wage. They're now SAG eligible. I mean, the magic that happens behind and in front of the camera is beyond what you see on the screen here. I mean, it can change lives. It can stimulate economies. It can build communities. So we believe wholeheartedly in that. Starting in high school. I mean, these kids are great. They're as professional as the pros who've been doing it for years. So can't wait to keep doing that.
They're certainly as professional as us, which is,
well,
you can judge after. Talking about SAG rates and things like that, Nick, I want to sort of bring you in here. So what were some of the challenges producing this film? Listening to Ben and Amnon's crazy ideas, how did you see yourself fit into the project? How did you take it on? And also, I'm curious, what were the logistical obstacles to film it both here and where we were on set in Detroit? We filmed a lot of this in Detroit, and I want you to sort of take that. So.
Sure. That was a multi-layered question.
Yeah, and I forgot what I asked already. So this will be great.
I'll start with how I came on board. Ben had sent me the script. I think it was like summer of 2021 now, so it's been 3 years, and we produced the film summer of 2022. And like Ben had said, Ben Salus, not Bernstein Ben, but Ben Salus, our moderator. We did shoot in Detroit and New York, which wasn't one of the logistical nightmares. That was actually smooth because I was on top of that pretty much from early in pre-production. I was like, guys, I got this. We're gonna do this. And Ben and Amnon had scouted a location as well. One of our executive producers had this amazing warehouse in Detroit, and so we were able to kind of make that our soundstage, and we had everything that they had at our disposal. So it was quite seamless, I would say, shooting in two locations, which I don't think every other film can say. But that's definitely something I think as a team we're like, how do we do that again? Because that was very feasible.
Did you notice how in one scene he's walking through New York and the other is in Detroit? Nope.
Hope not.
It's amazing how much you can get away with, and it's so much cheaper in Detroit too. Like, to speak to the ease on logistics, just the access we had to everything. I mean, in this one soundstage, we divided it down the middle, and one half was the Yaniv club, and then you literally walk through a curtain and you're in the casino in that flashback. So it was fun to kind of jump between the two, just, on our time off, just to be like, oh, I'm here, now I'm here. Yeah. But that's the fun of it.
I mean, and that was like, sorry?
I could take that on. So, in an independent film, you wear a lot of hats. Some of them are more glorious than the others. I took on a lot of the casting, especially like the background casting in Detroit. We did have a lot of actual Chabadniks lined up to be a part of it, but there were some miscommunications regarding COVID tests and vaccines and things of that nature. You can play it out in your heads, what happened. So when I arrived in Detroit, a few days before we started shooting, we had no one, and we needed, dozens. Luckily, someone, that I spoke to in Detroit said, maybe you won't find actual Orthodox men, but I know this one bar where there's a lot of Albanian bikers, and they look pretty much the same.
So Ben started hitting on Albanian bikers.
Yeah.
And eventually they joined the movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. We had, and we also had some Orthodox, we had some actual Hasidim show up that were really great.
And helpful too. Remember, they saved us
Oh yeah, they saved us. First of all, I'll say sometimes it was hard to, who's actually Jewish and who's Albanian.
Pretending.
And yeah, and then they also saved us. Very few people on our in our art department were Jewish. So the night when we were filming the club scenes with the steak, and you saw it's part of kugel, one of them flagged me down and said, "Hey, you got plastic kugel and plastic steak on the same plate. You can't have that." if this were real, this would be a problem. So we had to improvise at the last minute, and that's how Mendy came up with that.
Yeah. Pretty chaotic in the best way, that film is. One of the guys in my bachelor party scene lives in Canada and had to get across the border before midnight. So it was almost like Cinderella's shoe. Before he turned into an American, a pumpkin, he had to run. So he missed the second half of that shoot, but we made it in a plot line that he just got too drunk. So next time you watch it, you'll be able to see it in. And
We're mad at him, by the way. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think without any further ado, we're going to open it up to some questions from you all. We have a microphone here, so if everybody can sort of pass it for the people that I point out right here down in front.
Really, really enjoyed your film. So entertaining, so original. How did you raise money for production and post-production?
Yeah. Everyone always asks it. We get it. No, yeah. So it's kind of hard to put a price tag on this because so much of what we had was in terms of resources. For example, grants from the DOE. Because of the high school filmmaking program we started, we had a lot already at our fingertips in terms of equipment, in terms of talented crew members, students, who really helped save the day more than once. In fact, every day that they were on set. Additionally, having access to that studio in Detroit, we cannot emphasize enough. That place was like, our art department folks came up to us and they were like, I feel like I'm in Disneyland right now. Because if we were missing something, if something broke, they just had to walk down a mile-long warehouse full of props. And that was worth millions. So it was that, I mean, this was a very low budget film. So way too low. But but because of all the resources that we had at our disposal, we were able to elevate the production value. So it's really a film of value, more so than I would say than like a dollar amount.
Did the students do the editing?
I did the editing. Yeah, that was me. Post-production was a very chaotic and lonely process.
They market the hell out of it, though, on Instagram.
They sure do.
Thanks
So
for those kids.
distribution, actually. Thanks for distributing for us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about the grandparents that was dedicated in the beginning?
So we all love our grandparents. All three. You love your grandparents too, right? Okay, so all four of
Yes.
us. But no, I think it's a blessing to have a close relationship with your grandparents if you're lucky enough to have them. We grew up especially close with ours, and all of our grandparents, I think, encouraged us to do mischief and beg, borrow, and steal things, which is how you make movies. So it just made sense, and that's also why the guy that Mitchell Fields, who played my grandfather, that was our high school theater and film teacher. He was also an actor in Cleveland, so we wrote the part for him, and it was really special.
And he would want me to say this. He always says this. He says, always be good to your students because you never know when they're going to give you a job. And the grandparent theme really comes through in more than just that. Like even behind the scenes, like when Bernstein's lighting the yard site candle, we planned it out so that's actually my arm. And because it was a year to the day after my grandfather passed. So we were really able to integrate kind of our love for our grandparents and our memory for them just through logistics. And just kind of how we scheduled what we shot and when, and doing a close enough close up so that Ben and I don't look that similar, but just the arm was enough, and so it was our grandparents were in our hearts throughout this whole process.
Right down front.
So I have two very silly questions for Ben. The first one is, how did you come up with that first position thing? Do you really stand up like that in real life? And how did the idea come about? The second one is, I saw you in charge of effects, so why were special effects needed? Can you give us an example?
Sure. So the dog-footed thing, basically every acting teacher I've ever had has told me that I will never make it because of the way that I stand and walk. So for this project, I realized I should just write it into the movie. I think it worked. I didn't do special effects. Amnon did a lot of it, so I'll let him take on that.
Yeah, I did special effects and animation. That intro sequence, my animation work as well. My whole, thanks, yeah. My background is actually in that world. I've been an animator and a graphic designer for the past decade, over a decade now. So as I've gotten more serious into filmmaking, I can't let it go. I just have to, always. And it adds a lot. It adds some charm when you have something like a change of medium. So happy to provide that. And
what were some of the things that maybe to our eye we wouldn't necessarily see as special effects that you had to insert?
For sure. So Jonah almost falling off the roof. He was nowhere near the edge of the roof. That was a lot of special effects work and stunt coordinator work, which was very helpful. I think probably the big one you're wondering about, or maybe you aren't, is the 900 Hasidic men at the end. We did not have 900 Hasidic men in that theater. We had 5 men. I was one of them. And essentially, it's just a copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste until you fill the whole thing up and it looks like an enormous audience, of Hasidic men. So that counts as special effects. That's probably the biggest. That almost blew up my computer.
I think we filmed during the chase when you crash into the wall. That the first half of the chase was that in that was somewhere else.
That was in Detroit.
That was in Detroit,
So-
and then crash into the dance studio where one of our former classmates from Boston U, Jay Wu, is teaching dance in Chinatown.
Yeah.
That
It's
happened
like-
in New York.
Yeah, it's like the Portal game, It's like enter through Detroit and exit through New York into a dance studio. Yeah, so that's also just editing, That's just like, I didn't have to like fudge anything or animate anything over that. That was really him crashing through a wall. And he did a very good job of it.
And if you guys are confused as to how we're speaking about this crossing almost coasts, imagine what Nick had to do in his brain, which he's probably still coming down from, I would imagine.
See the trauma.
Definitely a challenge. Definitely a challenge. Not a lot of challenges within our group, which was really fantastic. At the end of the day, we were able to kind of unpack and be like, all right, this is what went right, and this is what went wrong, and let's not do this again tomorrow. And yeah, pivoting. There's a lot of pivoting on this movie. We did it. We shot it in 19 days, and that's between 2 locations. So to shoot a film of this magnitude, right? Yeah. Magnitude. Also, of this magnitude, yeah. It was no easy task. It was definitely no easy task, but we had a lot of great people. I mean, it's a big hats off to our crew. A lot of people that really did put their blood, sweat, and tears, and we can't emphasize that enough because we almost shut down because of everybody getting COVID. Like everybody was dropping like flies, like one day after.
They weren't dead.
After
they were
next. Yeah, no, they didn't actually die of
They were dead to us. Because they were worthless.
I'm not gonna make a joke about that, but no, everybody was getting sick, and there was some pushback at some point where it was like, okay, should we continue? And us 3 were just like, if we have to hop into every role of this movie ourselves, we will do it because we're not gonna shut down and stop production. So,
Right up, or if they've got, yeah. No, I'm going to get to you, I promise. I swear.
You said both that you started by saying that you came up with the idea. I said, what if there was a Jewish mafia or there was a game? And then you also said that there actually is one. Is there a real thing like that?
Yes, it's in about 10 minutes.
The game or the mafia? That's the question.
Sorry. The game is real. The history on the game is that what we think is that Israeli soldiers following their service, they would go backpacking. And in Nepal, this game was discovered by Israelis who brought it back and kind of, what's the word for anglifying but in Hebrew?
Tweaked it.
Yeah, that's
Tweaked. That's not. Yeah.
But as far as the mafia goes, we've remained.
We can
on a stance. We can neither confirm nor deny whether the mafia exists. We've gotten many letters from the higher ups not to say anything. So
Up there in the polo, and then we're gonna do 2 more. And then okay. 1 more, 2 more.
Yeah, I would like to know something about your personal backgrounds in terms of your insights into the Hasidic community, the shtick with the MC, the choosing of the song in particular, and how you got to know that community?
I think I'm gonna hop on that question, and I want to stay on the song. So can you guys talk about the day that the musicians came to set, and this Adam played Superman, and all of that, Adam who played Mendy?
Yeah, that was all improvised. All those musicians who we had lined up, we had like 7 klezmer musicians lined up to go do it, they just left. And Adam, thankfully, is a very talented musical theater actor. He was in Yiddish Fiddler here in New York and killed it, and is right now on tour playing Tevye somewhere. He's just always somewhere different. So it was in the moment, you know, we were like, what are we gonna do? We don't have an act. And he says this all the time also, it's like he wouldn't have been able to do it if he had time to prepare because he would have been too nervous. He just walked up there, and what came out was just pure gold in one take.
And the klezmer musicians, for the record, they left. What happened?
So we had a group of klezmer musicians that were supposed to come in and play a whole set. Filmmaking takes a very, very long time. A day can be anywhere between 10 to 18 hours, you know. This day was particularly long. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. And this certain group of musicians, some of them started to get a little annoyed that it wasn't their turn to go on yet. So they threatened to leave, and they left, except one, who was probably the most talented of them all, Alan Douglas, also was able to leverage the gig of actually composing the score out of this. He stuck around because he and Adam, who plays Mendy, they were hanging out in the green room just singing. You know, they have a shared love of klezmer music and Broadway, so they were just singing the whole time and didn't even notice how many hours it was taking. So when all of this was happening, Alan looked at Adam and said, "Why don't we do a Bigazun? We've been singing that for the last 5 hours." So that's how it all came about, and that's how our composer is in the movie playing himself.
And those are the best moments too in a film. It's the ones that you don't plan for. They're always the best. It's just the way it works. It's the magic and the chaos of indie.
Great. We have time for just one more, yeah? Right here. And we have the mic coming. Yeah.
We're also around afterwards. We're friendly. You can ask us anything.
We're going to teach you how to play Yaniv also.
You guys are super talented. It was just a really fun and well-written, well-directed film. And Ben, I don't know anything about your background except that you teach and you love theater, but your role was remarkable. I mean, the acting was really terrific, and I was just wondering how you managed to, you know, as an actor, how you managed to develop that role so beautifully.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot. Thank you. And you know, listen, Bernstein is a desperate, nervous Jewish guy that's clumsy. That is a cakewalk for me. I don't know if I could do Hamlet, but I can do that. You know, I feel like this film is very meta. It looks like everything came together now, but if you would have asked me 2 days before we started shooting, are we actually going to make this movie? I would have been like, I don't know. I really don't know. Do you know where my mom is, you know? So, raising the money for this film, getting the locations, getting my students approved to do this, not getting fired at my own job because I was completely clocked out for like 3 months straight. You know, all of that, you know, miraculously was great prep work for this film. You know, it's so many things, you know, everything that happened that got in my way is exactly what happened to him. Maybe it was a little less violent, but there were some close calls too. So, but thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you all for joining us for the movie. Upstairs, we have the Yaniv Club. Please come join us. Say hi to any of us, and any other info I need to say?